Russian President Vladimir Putin has invited Ukrainian President Zelensky to Moscow for a meeting, stating that if the meeting is well prepared, he is ready to hold talks. Putin emphasized that if common sense prevails, an acceptable way to find an end to the conflict can be agreed upon. He claimed Russian forces are advancing on all fronts and accused the enemy of trying to regroup to plug holes in their defenses. Putin also held those who ignored Russia's security interests responsible for the crisis. Despite the tensions, Putin addressed and expressed hope, saying that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he hopes to speak with the US President Donald Trump on Thursday to push for new sanctions against Russia. During a visit to Copenhagen, Zelensky emphasized the importance of security guarantees for Ukraine, referencing bilateral agreements with countries like Denmark. Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung joins us on the broadcast. Mr. Leung, I have to understand from your perspective, what do you make of, firstly, a Russian proposal to hold talks in Moscow?
The Ukraine war is, in fact, has more into a prolonged war of attrition. Attrition means to what extent the parties on both sides can withstand the economic and costs, as well as the supply of armament, as well as bodies on the battlefield. I think that initially Russia is calculated that he could just, it would be just a cakewalk, but then over 3 years down the line, Russia has now been able to reject its economy, and in fact, it could grow this economy by supplying its energy export to other countries and bypassing the kind of sanctions. So meanwhile, Ukraine is fast running out of bodies on the battlefield and also money. Of course, the European Union are extremely worried about Russia. But on the other hand, 3 years down the line, there's electorate becoming less supportive of putting blood and treasure on the battleground. We've just been seeing no end in this kind of conflict. Now, as far as President Trump is concerned, the biggest supporter of the war, even before Trump 2.0, has been the United States, supplying armament. Of course, the armament has got to be bought, but also supplying money to Ukraine. But President Trump 2.0 is getting tired of that. He wants to end the war, and therefore arranging direct talks with Putin, even behind the backs of his European Union allies, so as to end the war and hopefully get his Nobel Peace Prize and to transfer his attention to the Asia Pacific. But first of all, of course, he laid hands on the rare earth resources on Ukraine through American largest asset company, BlackRock. So you can see that there is a gradual a lack of interest in carrying the war on the part of the Trump administration. But of course, he wants to be seen to be dictating the terms. And of course, Russia is now being able to sustain the war more than before, but it's not winning everything. But Putin's obviously wanting to push the envelope on the eastern front, as it were, the Donbass area. And he wants to control as much as possible that area. Why is that area important? Because it's got access to the Black Sea, and also because it contains a great deal of mineral and other resources in Ukraine. And so he's content to holding on, of course, not only Crimea, which is the other side of the Black Sea, but also the Donbass area. And out of the Donbass area is, of course, have a lot of Russian-speaking citizens. So I think that this is the dynamics involved. By inviting Ukraine to Moscow, and of course he had already touched base with President Trump, is to impress on Zelensky that it just can't carry on relying indefinitely on the European Union's indefinite support in this endless war. And so ending the war on terms acceptable to Putin. Acceptable means holding on Ukraine, Donbass area, and a commitment not to join NATO, because Putin sees the Ukraine's joining the NATO as an existential threat on its doorsteps. So these are the dynamics involved.
Well, Mr.